Welcome to At Home Is Now. My name is Wanaka Overhuber, and I'm your host. My guest today is George P. Brooks. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, sir, for having me, and welcome everyone for joining us.
So, I like to start by asking my guests what they're really excited about at this point in their life and how that contributes to their joy and happiness.
Right. What I'm really happy about right now is I've been on a journey of recovery for a good portion of my life. I see that continuing and progressing. What I'm really most excited about is continuing my mission for over 8 years of addressing mental health. I specialized for 8 years in addressing mental health in the Black community, but I found that I have a greater purpose of expanding that to all people. So I'm doing some very exciting things right now, developing some programs, doing some real initiatives. Continuing my writing and public speaking. So what I'm excited about is destigmatizing mental health for all people, helping to get resources allocated to help people, and doing more to really address the issue that we've long neglected in our society, which is dealing with mental and emotional wellness.
That's quite a large scope of things you're excited about. So, when it comes to feeling emotionally well, what have you learned over the years, and how do you go about it? Maybe you would like to share a little bit about your story of recovery, ongoing story of recovery, so
Sure.
that get people can get an idea of where you're coming from.
Right. Well, I was diagnosed as bipolar about age 9. And it was really before they started diagnosing people under 18 with it, but I guess I was an exception. So I lived my life with various issues, trauma, physical disability from about age 9. So I've had a lot go on in life. In my 20s, I got married. I went through a lot. I dealt with a 10-year cocaine addiction. And about 8 years ago, I decided, I have to take accountability for myself. I could no longer sit around and wait for someone to come save me. I had to pick myself up. And in that journey, I learned to grow. I learned about accountability. I learned about not making excuses. I learned about self. I did self study. And that's really what arrived me to this point. So, 8 years ago, I started my nonprofit called Metta Association. Over the past 8 years, with no funding, no support or anything, I've been able to run mentoring programs with different school districts. I've done food drives. I've done a lot, and that's really how I got to the point where I'm at now. And last year, I also began to speak more about things socially, politically. I found that in my work in mental health advocacy, that a lot of that was intertwined. So that's really kind of how I arrived at the point where I am today, and it's been a journey. It's been hard. It hasn't been easy, but I'm proud of the fact that I did it on my own. That I fostered a sense of self, and I just want other people to do the same. So that's a lot about who I am and how I got here.
Okay, so you said you had physical disabilities, and then the mental was the bipolar diagnosis, I guess, if I understand correctly. So you had to deal with all the things that come with that, right? You probably had to
Right.
face all kinds of prejudice, but also all kinds of experts who believed they knew what was best for you.
Mhm.
And some of them probably were right, some of them wrong. I don't know. But,
Mhm.
anyways, very different things must have been going on there. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey and how you went about
Right. Well, I've also 3 years ago I had a bout of homelessness. I was actually on the street in 5-degree weather. Had two heart attacks in 1 week, but I was still on the street. And my thing is, I realized it's not about tribalism. It's about self. And even right now, I'm dealing with some chronic health issues, some very serious things. And what I've learned is that I levied what experts say uh, according to my own experience, and I came up with a nice system to kind of help myself heal. Now, currently, it's going to probably be about 8 months to a year before I fully recover physically. But in the meantime, I'm still working, I'm still studying, I'm still running my nonprofit, I'm still doing things like this. So what I want to say is, You have to, especially if you're dealing with a chronic issue or anything in life, try to mix expert consultation with what works for you and come up with a system. It's going to be unique, but you learn that we all have our individual journeys, but you have to be okay walking your own path. And by walking your own path and by being open and transparent about what you've been through, that's a real way to help others.
Wow. So how did you go about that? So you have these mental health experts, or there's physical health experts that
Mhm.
you get in contact with. They help you out in this and that way, but you also said you need to combine it with what works for you.
Right.
So how did you do that?
By not being mentally lazy and developing a sense of, of accountability. There was a point where I literally felt myself dying when I was at my lowest because I hit rock bottom a couple times in life. But when you get to that point and you realize nothing is going to change unless I take action, and you start to take action, that's when you grow. We never grow and progress when things are good. We only grow and progress in the darkness. And once you learn to embrace that and get used to it and be okay with it, that's when you really start to manifest who you really are and what you really do. And that comes with a mixture of, doing introspection, doing meditation, but also looking at the world around you and studying what has worked before and coming up with a system to fortify yourself that's going to work for you.
So so in other words, you've been choosing to think about things and think with use your own mind to figure things out in your own experience rather than allowing others to decide for you.
Right, and that's really the thing. Is that you have to be okay with being lonely, with solitude, with letting people go, because you have to understand we're not all equally yoked. There may have been people that I've had a relationship with or have been in my life for 30 years, but as I change and grow, then maybe that relationship isn't conducive to what I'm trying to do anymore. So you have to be okay losing people. You have to be okay in your solitude. I don't want to call it lonely, but it's a focused life. And that's what's been rewarding to me. I don't need a bunch of friends or followers or that herd tribe mentality as long as I have my own solitude. And that's what's really facilitated growth with me. That's when I've seen the most improvement. I have two sons. I've instilled that in them. You don't care about what people think. You don't worry about getting offended. You keep following your purpose. And if people can align with that, great, and if they can't, that's great as well. But as long as I'm true to myself, that's the most important thing. And that's what brings me peace.
Wow. So you've written a whole lot of books if I when I is what you told me, right? So I would like
Yeah.
to maybe you'd like to describe some of the topics you went into there and
Mm.
how you feel that it has blessed you to, like you said, you went through all these dark times and you've figured out a way to get feel okay with that or feel even the power of choice in that.
Well, I've always been a writer. This started from like age 7, and during my life, I've written comic books, screenplays, things like that. But around about August of last year, I started to write essays, polemics, dissertations, not prose per se, but I started to publish it. And in fact, I've been working on my Substack. I've got about 60 essays up there now. So I just started taking notions and things and just expounding upon them and writing them about them. And if you go to my Substack, it could be anything from politics to anime to pro wrestling. It's just I learned how to kind of formulate a method to express myself in a written way, and it's been extremely cathartic and healing for me. So that's something I've embraced. I almost do it daily now, and I think that through my writing, people have said that they can identify with what I'm saying. It's a good vehicle for expressing myself and just sharing my experiences in the hopes of just being open and transparent with people, because you never know the most mundane thing you can write or come up with or say, you don't know how that's going to impact somebody that comes upon it. And there's so many times I get a private message from people saying, hey, that line you wrote in that essay that resonated with me. And to me, that's the most powerful thing. And that's really what I enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's the same when you have a conversation like this one, right?
Right, right. It
You
is, you
you
know.
actually have no idea what will reach whom and for whom it will be helpful and for whom it may be something that sparks a new interest or a new area
Mhm.
of exploration or whatever else may come from that.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, that's true. So you said you were diagnosed with bipolar, and I think there must be a whole lot of different ways of experiencing that. I've had a few bipolar guests, right,
Right.
expressing about it on the podcast. So maybe you'd like to share your experience with that.
Well, my diagnosis is bipolar 1, PTSD, dissociative identity disorder, and probably a couple other things in there. When you have a chronic mental illness, it's usually not just one diagnosis, and it kind of becomes a thing that we discuss when I encounter other people that are like me. Um, and it's been interesting. As far as medication, as far as trying therapy, it's a lifelong thing. And people, often ask me, George, how many years did it take for you to find a medication cocktail that worked? About 10 years. And that might work for 3 years, and then you have to start all over. So it's an ongoing process. I'm probably, as far as my physical health, I've probably been on about 17 different medications at one time, and that's a challenge too. So you kind of have to correlate your physical and your mental and your spiritual, and find the balance. You have to get to where you don't let things offend you. You can't let the outside world disrupt you, because you have to be very centrally focused to heal and function and do the things that I've done. Most people with maybe a tenth of my conditions would just languish and sit in bed all day and not do anything. That's never been me. So even on days where I'm physically exhausted, I still do something. I still run my nonprofit. I still go out and do public speaking. I still run programs because that's my purpose. So if nothing else, I found that the mental and physical disabilities that I've dealt with all my life fortify me and give me strength. And with that, it's all, I almost make it a game. I feel bad today, but what can I still get accomplished? What can I work around? And that's a challenge, and that's something I find absolutely exhilarating.
Wow, yeah, that's important because I think that if you don't have purpose or something that you keeps you going, right? Even if it's one or two things that you get done, right?
Hmm.
You might get very, very unhappy and give up
Right.
on any attempt at having some value in your life, right?
Right. And it's just, even if I did not have the issues that I had, I would still, as a man, seek purpose. I mean, if a man does not have purpose, then he's not a man. And I think a lot of times, because I'm an advocate for men, and a lot of times we as men, especially in today's society, we get distracted with things that aren't important. We get distracted in pursuit of material things, of toys, of women. But what is your purpose? If you seek your purpose and you find your purpose, that one thing that drives you, everything else will fall into place. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that.
Yeah. So you're saying your purpose is this mental advocacy for mental health
Right.
and for neurodiversity and all these different things that
Right.
people speak of, right? How
Right.
to deal with that, and also for men, as you were saying now.
Right, because my greatest purpose is to be a father. I have two sons. That is my greatest purpose. That is truly my legacy, and everything I do is tied into that, especially with mental health. And I realized the other day, why do I try so hard for mental health? Why does this drive me when I've had nothing, when I've had no food for 2 or 3 days, but I'm still running a program, but I'm still doing this? And it's because my son, oldest son Joshua, who I had had custody of and raised all his life, was diagnosed at age 7 as well. And so not only did I have the unique juxtaposition of my own issues, but I had his, and I had that compounded with things that I went through growing up in Memphis, dealing with things politically, and my nonprofit. So it kind of got to be an interesting mix, but I really realized what I do every day is to heal myself and my son and other sons that are dealing with it, and other daughters that are dealing with it, because that's really the true point of the purpose.
Wow. So what's been most driving is that you care about your children and about the health of other people, and not only your own, and that you want to share your experience and what you've learned with people so they can have a different journey, right? Or an easier journey, or perhaps just feel heard.
Right. I mean, I look at it as though we're all on our journey. We all take different routes to get where we're going. And if they can see maybe something that I've been through on their way and gives them insight and clarity, that's the beauty of life.
Yeah. So would you were saying, so it's a whole, so this whole journey of dealing with so many medications, you probably also had some things where there were adverse reactions because of they were not fitting, the medication wasn't fitting together or didn't work
Right.
together in a good way, things like that. That's a lot to navigate, right? Because you might feel guilty about the choices you made, or because you think the experts made a mistake or things like that. You have to deal with all of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, every day I get up, I literally, as soon as my eyes open, I have to assess how am I feeling? Do I have food? Do I have this today? Before I get into the endeavors, before I get into meetings, before I talk to people that are running for Congress that I speak to, before I work with certain organizations that want me to come in and run programs. It's a very elemental existence, but it's just part of my day. Every hour I have to check on myself physically. Is my heart okay? Is my diabetes okay? Okay, I'm dealing with this. Is my bipolar okay? It's a constant struggle. It's not a struggle. It's just something. It's like a constant barometer that I have to be aware of. But as long as I can still function and do things in that context, then I'm happy.
Yeah. So, in other words, you're very thankful for what you can do, right?
I don't look at it as what I can do. I just look at it as what I will do and what I must do. I don't limit myself with everything I go through. I don't ever sit up and say, well, I'm at a disadvantage. It's an advantage. Even me being a black man, a lot of people whine about that. Oh, woe is me. Make it an advantage. Don't sit up there and be weak because you're dealing with something. We all deal with something. But if you don't look at it in terms of turning it to your advantage, then you're handicapping yourself, and no one's doing that for you. And a lot of times we oppress ourselves in our own mind. I deal with a lot of stuff that most people tell me, George, if I dealt with, I had one point, a friend told me, he said, George, if I had your life, I'd kill myself. Okay, that's you. That's not me. I find fun in struggle. I find fun in challenge. I find exhilaration in the growth. And if most people can't do that, that's fine. They can't. But if somebody can get some inspiration by watching what I've been through, that's a blessing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there are people who also can do that, right? But
Yeah.
and do need support in it. So yeah, those who can't do it, or are on the verge of being able to do it, right? They might be exactly the right people to reach, right? Who the people who are on the verge of finding a way to do that. Because you
Right. Well,
can, it doesn't mean because you're at a point where you think you couldn't do it that it might not switch or shift.
in my mind, there is not even a mindset of I can't do it. It's just I will do it. I will progress. I will pick up. There have been times in my life where I've had falling spells where, because of a confluence of health issues and medication, I would fall. I would have to lay on the floor hours. Okay, if I have to lay on the floor for 2 hours till I get back up and keep moving, that's just what it is. I didn't whine about it. I didn't complain about it. I just did it, and that's what I do to this day. So it's like what people see as struggles are not struggles for me. It's just every day. And as long as you keep going and you keep growing, then you're living. But once you develop the mindset of, oh, woe is me, and oh, I have health problems, oh, I have the mental health issues, oh, I have economic factors, oh, I've been homeless, oh, I got this going on. To me, it makes you kind of weak, because at that point, that means you're letting it be a hindrance to you. And that's something that not only do I not admire, I don't respect, because I've seen what I've been through. And I'm not saying everybody can be me, but if you make the effort and don't adopt a slavish, defeatist mindset, then there's hope, then there's opportunity for growth.
Yeah, there. It's a very powerful thing to choose to accept when something something isn't possible, and then to use the moment when it becomes possible to do
Right.
it.
Right.
Like you were saying, okay, I had to lie on the floor for 4 hours. I
It
couldn't
happens.
do anything else at that moment, but after that, I stood up again.
Right, and you have to learn understand you can't rely on other people. I don't that's great that people have family. I haven't spoken to my blood relatives in 8 years. I don't care. My life is better because I realize it's on me. There's nothing that they can do and add that's going to fortify me as a person if I don't do it myself. So why deal with toxicity? Why deal with things like that? Once you develop a sense of solitude, I feel more kinship in my solitude than I would necessarily trying to please people. So you just have to find a mix that works for you.
Yeah, there's a lot in that. So deciding to feel comfortable with whatever is, and deciding also not to get caught up in all the games that are often played, right? All these,
Right.
like you were saying, toxicity. Yeah, there's a lot of that there, but
Right.
like you said, the main factor is your own choice.
Right. And being okay with being uncomfortable. What is comfort? I everything I own can fit in two suitcases. I've bought houses, I've had cars in my youth. That brought me nothing. So now I'm comfortable with the fact that everything I own fits in two suitcases. That's great. That's less attachment, And what is comfort? I don't need a luxurious bed. I don't need a luxurious car to function. And a lot of people say, "Well, that's not comfort." Man, if I got a roof and can eat and just live basic existence, that's the ultimate comfort because I'm not bound by those extemporaneous, unnecessary things that most people fall into. So I can function more. I'm freer that way.
Yeah, I've had guests who traveled and do all kinds of things.
Right.
Don't say they have anything, and they don't really have money in their pockets. They're living from
Right.
day to day. So yeah, there's a lot of there's amazing stories out there of how to do that, right? Yeah.
Right. Excuse me 1 second. I gotta get my camera back up. Hold on. And all right, I am back. Yeah. It's just a matter of what's important to you. I've been blessed to do a lot of cool stuff in my life. I've run a nonprofit. I worked in the wrestling business. I worked in the anime business. I worked in comic books. I've done martial arts. I've been really blessed, and that's what brings me joy. I can reflect back on days when I got to do things and glean from lessons that I learned from that. I've done things that most people have not had an opportunity to do. And I take all those things and I made a hodgepodge of philosophy. A lot of my writing is based on philosophy. I've studied Stoicism. I'm a big follower of Friedrich Nietzsche, of Epictetus, of Marcus Aurelius. That's what helped kind of bridge the gap in my recovery over the years and come up with a system. And that's a blessing to me. So I mean, I'll find I can sit all day and research about different philosophies and different things and histories, different things, and come up with ideas and have fun with that. My brain is my ultimate sandbox. So as long as I have that, I'm really not concerned about anything else because I have my peace in that regard, and it's not dependent upon likes. It's not dependent upon validation. It's not dependent upon adulation because I can take what I have internally, turn it into something, put it out there, and I'll get messages from people saying that helped over the holidays. I was getting because I do a lot of advocacy, mental health advocacy on a real level. Well, I do the things. Well, I've been on proclamations and I deal with Congress at the same time. At 2 in the morning, I have people call me and say, "Hey, I'm going through something." It's really on that level. And over the holidays, I found that there was something I was dealing with. So I wrote a bipolar survival guide, 135 pages in about 3 days. Being able to take something and put it in a tangible form that people can take and intake and apply to themselves, that's a beautiful thing to me. So while a lot of people seek their validation through other ways, that's fine, great for them, but that's just not how I choose to live my life.
Maybe you would like to share a little bit about your system because you were speaking of a system that you developed,
Right.
and also maybe also something about your bipolar survival guide because maybe that I think there's a lot of people who might get helped by that.
Right, and I make it available for free. I have some essays up on Barnes and Nobles, and I've got about 50 essays, and probably about 100 more I'm going to upload. But I wrote the bipolar survival guide overnight. Took me 3 days, and I put my experience and things I went through, my experience with medication, my experience with therapy, not as a clinician, but more so as a survivor, to say, hey, this is what worked for me. Because I make a very stark disclaimer at the beginning of it saying, I'm not a therapist, I'm not your dad, I'm not clergy, I'm not your pastor, none of that. This is just me as a person that's been bleeding like you, to say, hey, this is how I stitched this wound. Maybe this will work. Maybe that'll work. And that's really the thing that really helps people, because I also deal with addiction recovery, people dealing with recovery from addiction. I've been, sober from cocaine for 8 years this month. I haven't touched it because I dealt with my trauma, and I try to get people to approach things from that perspective, because there's so many things that we deal with that affect us in a negative way. But if we break them down to an elemental level and break ourselves down, that's when we really heal. And we have to learn to shut the world out sometimes. So I offer my voice as a solitary voice for people, to say, hey, this is my experience. Whatever you experience, that's fine. But this is what has helped me. So that's the most honest and really loving thing I can do for people, is to bear my scars, to try to give them some insight.
Yeah, I think it's very important that you have that disclaimer that says you're not a doctor, you're not this,
Right.
you're not that.
Right.
You're just coming from your experience and what you've
Right.
went through and
Mhm.
what worked or didn't work for you.
Right.
Because yeah, it, you can't say you're the professional, but you do have a unique experience, and that can help.
Yeah, and that's more
That
valuable than a clinician. I mean, I've heard people say what you said, George, has helped me more than than the doctor with the letters behind his name. Not to negate their importance in that, but especially in dealing with recovery and mental health, the clinicians have their place. But that real life bled testimonies are really is going to get people through over the hump and give them ways to help themselves heal.
yeah, it's amazing because yeah, that's something we can give each other. Like you said, a sentence that may be so normal to you, right? Or so usual for you in your thought system may be the light for someone else
Yeah, and that
because
because that's how it's happened for me. I mean, I can sit up here and study. Like later on today, I'm going to study absurdism, stoicism, some psychology, and it's like there have been moments where I've heard a sentence or a notion, and it sparked something, and I've been like, "Wow, that's great." So you have to look for those things and keep your eyes open, because you never know what's going to come to you and help you heal or help you grow.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so another topic that I think is very important because you're advocating for mental health,
Mhm.
right?
Right,
The idea that we are all infinitely valuable,
right,
and that's an idea from A Course in Miracles as well. It formulates it a little differently. We are all infinitely valuable in the mind of God, right?
right,
But if you, but even without saying it that way, it's an idea that is very important also in philosophy, right? That the
correct,
human being has rights independent of any disabilities or not capabilities or whatever they are, right?
right.
At that they're equally valuable. Now,
Yeah.
how do you help people see that? Because I think you're in a unique position, having going through so much,
Mhm.
to actually show that there's value to everyone, and
By
and that
base, yeah.
people who think they're not valuable because of this, that they do have an opportunity to give up that idea.
Right. I try to do that by being as authentic as possible. I find that in today's society, especially, there's been a strong turn away from God, from critical thinking, and you know, I that's something I try not to embody, because We give up our sovereignty. We've given up our sovereignty in a lot of ways, as far as mentally, emotionally, in the lure of clicks and likes and social media, to the point we don't take that time to kind of huddle ourselves in and focus on ourselves. We're so plugged in all the time that it's like being in a state of constant intoxication. And until you take some time to sober up and get away, you're going to see the world through drunken eyes, and that's not reality. So, this is one thing I try to just work against.
Yeah, wow. So so you really advocate that everyone can find value and purpose in their lives, no matter how many hurdles they may be facing, or or how many things they may have going on in their lives.
Right, you have a choice. I hear people a lot of times complain about the system, especially with the current administrations. Oh, we're oppressed. No, you're not. You're choosing that. We all have challenges in life, sometimes me more than most. And it's just, if you sit there and you whine about being oppressed, and you whine about the system, and you whine about how things are, then you're stuck there and you're not going to grow. And you're going to be bitter, and you're going to be stagnant, and your communities are going to falter. Stop being lazy. Stop worrying about what's ahead of you and find a way around it. And I've had to do that all my life with health problems, with mental health problems, with poverty. So, sometimes it frustrates me when people just get stuck in this trauma way of thinking. It's like, work a way around it. Or either just shut up or just give up and die, because that's what you're trying to do. If you're not fighting to walk around your circumstances and things around you, you're not living. You're not even really existing. You're just taking up space.
Hmm. That's a hard thing to say, but yeah.
It's the truth. I mean, that's the thing about me is that I've learned in my life. I used to be much more soft and delicate with people, and what good is that doing? That's just appeasing them. I'd rather tell you something that may startle you to prompt you into action than sit up here and namby pamby. I'm not your mom. I don't care about your feelings. If I see you about to get run over by a truck, I'm not going to say, "Hey, John, look," I'm going to say, "Oh, hey, get the hell out the way." And that's how we have to approach life, because that's just reality. We don't have time to sit and be docile and weak anymore when we see ourselves going down the tubes. You can either waste time doing that, or you can do something a little bit more expedient, maybe not as pleasant, and prompt some change and get to healing. So it's just a matter of just what people want to deal with. But people nowadays have just gotten so soft, where they've given up their mental sovereignty and everything else. And I'm not. It's not up to me to change people. I just live my life, and you can either look in the window and learn, or not.
Yeah. Well, I guess the idea of everyone being infinitely valuable
Mhm.
is a very important one.
Right.
So that actually doesn't say that a person who has given up or is not doing anything is less valuable. I don't think
No.
that's what you want to say, right?
Not at all. And that's the thing. I think if people recognize their sovereignty more, they'll see their value a lot quicker, because a lot of us don't see our value because we get muddled in society and things like that. We don't take that time to think, what is my purpose? Who am I? We get so busy trying to define who we are by external factors in other people's eyes, instead of looking in our own mirror. So that's why many of us get lost. We don't have our purpose. We don't recognize our value. Once we do, we can start to build upon it and fortify it. But until you can get to where you can establish some mental clarity and learn who you are and respect your experiences and not live through the eyes of others, you're gonna be lost. And I think that people that, especially people that have beat addiction on a real level, we tend to have an ego because we've been through that process, and most people don't. So I think if people can really kind of sit down and learn to be with themselves and be present and unplug a little bit, and then come back into the world, they'll have a lot more clarity, they'll have a lot more focus. But unfortunately, all you can do is try to live by example. And because you can't make people do anything, especially not nowadays. But just try to be who you are, be authentic to yourself, be real, be compassionate, be honest, and hope that people gravitate toward that and they learn something. And in turn, you can learn from them. I learn from people all the time, people I don't agree with, but I love that discourse because that gives me an opportunity to grow. So it gets to be an exchange in life, and that's a beautiful thing. But hopefully, we can get to more of that, because that's really what's going to improve society, improve people's lives, and take us to a better place. Not just as a diaspora of Black people, but as a human race. And we need to keep that focus. Let's not wear labels. Let's look at each other as individuals. Let's get into herd mentality. Let's try to do more to really help and heal, and on a real level. And that may take more interaction than what we're used to doing. And I thank you for having me on, because I think this discussion may illuminate for something for someone. And I'm sure I'll go back and look at it and be like, oh, illuminate something for me. And that's the beauty of life.
Indeed, yeah. So, so I think one of the main components here is that you may have all these issues, but if you see them as a problem, you won't set a goal or a purpose in your life or find one that you can actually do whatever you find the options to do, right? Because
Right.
if you can't do one thing, there is probably another way, or you can do a smaller thing than the one you thought you wanted to do,
Right.
but it's already a step in the right direction, right?
Right.
So because recovery is all about doing what you're able to do and staying motivated to do the next thing, try the next thing, maybe challenge yourself a little bit more every time. But it's all about staying in that, right? Rather than, and one day you maybe be able to do a lot more than the other day and still be happy about it on the days
Right.
that you do less or able to do less.
Right.
And
Like Bruce Lee said, be like water. I think people need to be more like water, because water is fluid. Water doesn't stop moving. But when it encumbers an obstacle, it goes around it. It goes around it. It goes under it. It can break through it. So you have to be like water and be fluid and take things that people may see as problems as opportunities. My health, I look at it like an opportunity. I think a lot of the social constructs that we use to stop ourselves, as far as politically, and me being a Black man, I think a lot of people use, not saying it doesn't exist, but use racism and social injustice as an excuse. Use it as an opportunity. Be like water, be malleable, be amiable, and grow. Otherwise, like I said, you can't progress. And we have to learn to keep progressing and move toward things and move around things in our own way. And people, just unfortunately have just kind of just hit a stopgap now, and it's just things I've noticed personally over the past 6 months that I hope that change in time with people.
yeah, it's beautiful to choose to see it as an opportunity.
Right.
So actually see what you're experiencing as an opportunity.
Yeah. And
And
gratitude, and gratitude. I had an instance this morning. I published an essay, about people whining, and I'm like, people complain about the country all the time, but I'm like, if you're sitting in your house and you have food and you're door dashing Chick-fil-A and you're texting on TikTok on $1,000 phone, what are you really complaining about? Really? And you look at relatively in other parts of the world what other people go through. Stop being ungrateful. Gratitude. I wake up every day to pray at 3 in the morning. The first thing I do is I thank God for yesterday and today. Gratitude is big for me. Once you embody a spirit of gratitude, then you start to see things differently, and you start to appreciate those opportunities, to where something that you used to see as a barrier, as a negative thing, you see it as something else. And we just have the wrong mindset. I just think we just become a lazy society, and unfortunately we can combat that, but we have to put in the effort to do so.
mm, yeah, wow, stepping up to the plate, right?
I mean, you kind of have to. I mean, I've never been the type where I could rest on my laurels. I've always had to fight for something. So that's all I know. But and that's been interesting. But people want things in life. They want peace. They want happiness. We all want to have a good economy and have our kids be happy. But people aren't willing to put in the work to do it. And if you're not, don't be surprised when you don't get what you want, when you don't get what you need. And effort equals outcome. And people just, they want things handed to them. They want things easily. They want to get easily offended. But life is hard. Life is not meant to be easy. If life is easy, what's the joy in it? If you don't know loss, if you don't know pain, you can't know joy, you can't know happiness, you can't know peace. And people want one without the other. And it doesn't come that way. Just doesn't.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the other things A Course in Miracles uses is the idea that we all want to be perfectly happy, and that's
Right.
something we can all agree on.
Right.
And that's the only thing we all can agree on,
Right.
basically,
Yeah. I
because
mean, we all want the
about
same.
how to do it or what to do or whatever, people do not agree on that.
I mean, we all want the same things. We just disagree on how to get there.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
that's the problem. And I think if we can become a little bit more unified and keep focus on what we all want, then that'll help. But it's just right now, there's just such great descent in how to get those goals and how to get those things that we as all humans want. It's noisy and disruptive. So hopefully that'll change and get better over time.
yeah, that would be beautiful, right?
It would be. It would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So when you advocate for mental health, what are the main things you say or advocate for?
The first thing is destigmatizing, especially in the black community. We've stigmatized mental health to the point where people are still thinking it doesn't exist. We have to destigmatize it. We have to decriminalize it. We have to get people feeling as though it's okay to get help. There are a lot of people that still won't talk to a therapist or still won't get medication, and until we get people comfortable getting care, the care can't take place. We have to deal with our trauma. We have to deal with those things in our family that have led to mental health not being addressed, and we also have to understand there's a difference between mental illness from a diagnosable condition standpoint and a mental wellness standpoint, which is more circumstantial. So we have to understand the difference, learn to deal with both, educate ourselves, do our research, take accountability. But 8 years of doing this has been hard. I'm nowhere near done. When I'm dead and gone, then somebody else needs to pick up the baton of my nonprofit Metta Association and keep running with it because it's got to be a progress process. Because we did not get to this point as far as mental health having such a detrimental impact on our community overnight. It won't be fixed overnight. So we can work on destigmatizing it and get people into medication and kind of lull people into where, hey, now we can get knee deep in dealing with those issues. Then we'll see progress. But it's been a long road. It's been a long 8 years. I've done this without one donation. I've been living on disability for about 20 years. So I have to piece out a way to get ways to stay, but I've been able to do it just through grit and grime. And if I can do it that way, then I don't really want to hear people say that they can't do it. That's a lot of where I'm coming from. So it's a process. I've been committed and I will continue to be committed. And hopefully we can all work together and get some things done and help people deal not only with mental health, but deal with societal issues and go from there.
Yeah, that's a big one to deal with the stigma that has been placed on it.
Yeah, because if you look at it, even back in biblical times, mental illness was always stigmatized. The mentally ill are probably the only group that you can make fun of and not get canceled for. So we got a long road to go, and I'm so blessed that when I was diagnosed, my parents were not the typical black conservative parent, not well, typical black parents. They didn't run away from mental illness. They were like, hey, you need help, you get help, you take your medication, you do what you have to do. And that ran so antithetical to a lot of the stories that I hear, not just in the black community, but in all communities with mental illnesses. Get over it. It's not real. And I was blessed for my parents because we didn't buy that BS. It was like, get help, get well, do what you have to do. And that's one thing that spurred me with my nonprofit is that accountability. Um, my dad would tell me as a teenager, if you don't take your medicine, George, that's on you. If you don't take care of yourself, it wasn't anyone else's fault or responsibility. And it gave me a certain strength of resolve that I carry with today, and that I poured, into my two sons. So that's one thing I'm proud of, because that's where true strength comes from. It's from taking accountability, and I'm so strong on that because I see such a lack of it in our society right now. And it's like, if I did not take accountability, I'd still be in Memphis. I'd probably be dead right now. I'd still, you know, be messed up. And it's just so disheartening. It's like, if you take accountability, that's when everything starts. That's the catalyst for healing and recovery. But it's going to be a journey to get people to understand that. So that's something I'm endeavoring to do.
Yeah, I think that that's very valuable to decide that it's okay to get help, that it's and that one does need to take responsibility for one's part in it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and your also assessment that people have thought it's okay to make fun of people who have issues, right?
Right.
Instead
And
of
they
helping, instead of being helpful.
Right. I mean, and I'm the kind of person, I find humor in everything. Through my 10-year cocaine addiction, I make jokes about it. It makes some people uncomfortable, but I'm like, that's how much I've healed, that I can look back at those dark moments and find humor in it, because I've made it to the other side. So, we have to find our own ways to cope, our own ways to deal, our own ways to process. But until you take accountability, you cannot get on that road to recovery.
Yeah, 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 that's a powerful message, and I think I will leave it at that. So I will thank you very much for joining me on At Home Is Now, because I think that's a very relevant issue to be at home right now. And you've been inspiring about that, about how you can be at home in the moment with whatever is
Mhm.
and keep focused on what you have chosen as valuable in your life. That's really, really beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure. People can follow me on Facebook to see my advocacy work. George P. Brooks. I'm founding member of a new network. There's going to be a Roku that deals directly with mental health. I'll post that information. I'm doing some things with some other organizations to deal with mental health. I've got a lot of things going, and I'm truly invested in this, as I have been. I've got blood in this game. But if I can create an environment where at least one person does not have to go through what I've been through, then that fulfills my purpose. So follow me on Facebook, my Substack. I'll post all that. I'll give you whatever notes and support, and hopefully we can provide a place where people can at least talk and be conducive to healing, because that's what this world needs right now.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues for people who are dealing with things like you have and are, right? And
Mhm.
for every one of us actually, is to recognize that we're not alone with it.
Right.
That we're just because we're having these thoughts, we're not. It doesn't mean we're crazy. It just means okay, we're having this experience, right? And it may be a more common experience than we ever dared to think.
True. True. Because mental health is the one thing that, no matter who we are, where we're from, our color, our sexual orientation, our political persuasions, our income, it affects all of us. So, and that's why we need to really try to unify and address it, because no one's immune from it, and it's just a reality.
Yep, no one's immune from either mental or physical health issues.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, we all have that to deal with. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you all the viewers and listeners. Thank you all of you for supporting this podcast. Please review it, let people know about it, and if you want to be a guest, reach out to me so that we can arrange that. Blessings to you all. Until next time.
Thank you.